Welcome to episode 36 in our series on Rabbi Moshe Chaim Luzzatto's The Path of the Just. And we are up to chapter 21. And this deals in the matter of acquiring piety. So we've talked a lot about various aspects of the elements of piety and various uses of piety. Now the Ramchal is going to teach us how to acquire piety. So the Ramchal begins. What will greatly facilitate the acquisition of piety is extensive observation and profound contemplation. For when one contemplates profoundly concerning the degree of the Blessed One's exaltedness, his absolute perfection, and the infinitely enormous gap that exists between his greatness and our lowliness, it will fill him with fear and trembling before the Eternal. Thus, when one contemplates the enormity of his beneficence to us and the intense love of the Blessed One for Israel, the nearness of the just to him, and the loftiness of the Torah and the mitzvot, and related analysis and studies, this will surely ignite in him an intense love, and he will choose to cleave to him and yearn to cleave to him. For when he sees that the Creator, may he be blessed, is truly a father to us, and shows us compassion the way a father does for his children, at some point there will awaken within him the will and desire to repay God as a son would his father. To accomplish this, a person must segregate himself and garner all of his knowledge and understanding for the study and analysis of these truths. So very true there, the Ramchal describing at the highest level, when one feels a connection to God, that you must kind of treat this relationship like a father-son or a daughter-father relationship, because sometimes perhaps we think of God as in too much of an abstract way. We know God exists, but how do we connect meaningfully with God? So if one imagines the relationship like a father and a son or father and a daughter, perhaps this gives us some sort of framework that we are used to for the construct of this relationship. So the Ramchal continues, and he brings to us the attention, he teaches us King David's Psalms, or Tehillim, the very famous, the most used book in the religion, the Tehillim, using this to help us. So the Ramchal continues. What will surely assist him in this enterprise will be a diligent attitude and attentive study regarding the Psalms of David, may peace be upon him, and the contemplation of the verses and their content, since these are imbued with love and fear of the Eternal, and all manner of piety. When one reflects upon them, he cannot avoid being greatly inspired to follow in the psalmist's footsteps and to walk in his ways. In addition, reading about the deeds of the pious will also facilitate this through the anecdotes that are related there. For all these anecdotes stir the mind to take counsel and to emulate their wonderful deeds. This is clear. And now the Ramchal is going to describe factors that lead to the loss of piety. In other words, preoccupation with other matters and worries. So the Ramchal continues. The factors that lead to the loss of piety are preoccupation with other matters and worries. When a person's mind is preoccupied and distressed by his anxieties and his affairs, he is unable to direct his thoughts towards the type of contemplation previously mentioned. And without this contemplation, piety cannot be attained. And even if one has already attained it, his current preoccupation with other matters grips his mind and confuses him, preventing him from strengthening himself in fear and love of the Eternal and in the other aspects of piety that I have mentioned. Therefore our sages of blessed memory have said, and he quotes from Shabbos 30b, the divine presence will not reside through sorrow, nor laziness, nor through levity, nor through the preoccupation with trifles, but rather through the joy experienced by the performance of a mitzvah. This applies with even greater force to the pursuit of pleasures and enjoyments, for they are diametrically opposed to piety, since they lure the heart towards them and cause a person to turn away from all aspects of abstinence and true knowledge. However, a person can be protected and rescued from these detrimental factors by trusting in the eternal. This means that one must completely cast his burden upon the eternal, secure in the knowledge that no one ever lacks what has been designated for him. As our sages of blessed memory have said, and he quotes from Beitzah 16a, all a man's provisions are designated for him from Rosh Hashanah. And they also said in Yoma 38b, a person cannot touch even a hair's breadth of what is set aside for his fellow. And now the Ramchal is going to teach us that we have to make an effort to earn a livelihood. In other words, we have to find a vocation in life. Even though perhaps God preordains that we will get by, or we will be comfortable financially, we have to make the hishtadlut, the efforts to be worthy of God's blessings and gifts. Perhaps you could imagine it as like the father-son relationship. If the son is lazy and expects the father to give, it's not a proper relationship. The father just doesn't give just like that. But if the son is a dutiful son who volunteers to do the chores around the house, to help with the household things, and to be a good son in those respects, do it with vigor and with urgency, the father is pleased to bestow whatever is deserving to the son. So there's a big difference. So the Ramchal is teaching us we have to work, but once we start working, God will put his wind in our sails, so to speak, and keep us comfortable, perhaps on a financial footing. So the Ramchal continues. A person might have been able to sit idly and wait for the realization of what was ordained as his, if not for the penalty imposed upon all men. And he quotes from Bereshis 3:19, by the sweat of your brow will you eat bread. As a result, man is obligated to expend a minimum of effort in order to earn his livelihood, for thus has the Supreme King decreed. It is like a tax which must be paid by the whole of mankind and which cannot be evaded. Consequently, they said in Midrash Shochetov 136, verse 25, is it correct to suppose that one's provisions would be given to him even if he sits idly? Therefore it states, and he quotes from Deuteronomy 14 verse 29, in all your actions that you do. But this does not imply that one's effort leads to results. Rather, the effort is a prerequisite. Once one makes the effort, his obligation is fulfilled, and it becomes possible for the heavenly blessings to rest upon him. He has no need to spend his days in diligence and effort, as King David said in Psalms 75 verse 7, for neither from the east nor from the west nor from the wilderness comes the uplifting, for the Lord is the judge. He will lower this one and he will elevate the other. And King Solomon also said in his Proverbs 23 verse 4, do not toil for wealth and refrain from your own understanding. Now the Ramchal is going to describe the ways of the Hasidim and the Rishonim, whose Torah was the primary importance, and earning a living was a secondary consideration. So the Ramchal continues and concludes. Rather, the correct way is the one of the Hasidim and Rishonim, those who practiced piety in the earlier generations, for their Torah was of primary importance and their livelihood was subordinate to it, and as a result they were able to successfully pursue both. For once a person has worked a little, from then onwards he has only to place his trust in his master, and he need not worry about anything that is of a worldly nature. His mind will then remain free, and his heart will be ready for the true piety and the pure divine service. So very, very true. We must make the efforts. That concludes this chapter, by the way, chapter 21, acquiring piety. So we have to make this hishtadlut, or this effort. We have to take the first step, acquire a vocation, acquire a job, start a business, work for somebody, or somehow start that process. And God will make us find time, help us to find time by providing some sort of business. But also so we're comfortable enough to take time off to learn Torah, which should be the primary objective. So that was very interesting, and I look forward to next episode, where chapter 22, now we're going to step up a new rung of the ladder. This is the virtue of humility.